I've always been pretty fortunate in the fact that I've had quite a good circle of friends. And when I was in like my sort of mid-20s, that started to peter out. People started getting all adult and quite responsible and having kids and going off like that. And the social circle kind of got smaller and smaller, which is just human nature, but I'm not a big fan of. And what I found is that I was just left with like the sort of social flotsam and jetsam of my group. And I thought, fuck this for the game of soldiers. So I started looking into other avenues to occupy my time. And I come across a local martial arts club, a local kung fu club, which I joined at the tender age of 26 with bad knees and a bad back and all the rest of it. And it was, for me personally, it was probably the best thing that I've ever done in my life. It was brilliant. The stuff that I learnt there transcended martial arts. Learnt stuff about myself. It was just brilliant. Met another circle of great friends, one of which was my mate Andy Jagger. And we became firm friends, and we were doing sort of gradings together. And he was about 6 foot tall, skinny as a rake. If you painted his head red, it could be a giant match. But a lovely, lovely lad. And the system that we were involved in, it had an inter-club competition every 4 years. So we were training towards that. And it come to the date of the competition, it was in Cardiff. I think it was 3 fights, lost 1, 2, and lost 1. I think. It's kind of hard to keep track when people are smacking in the head. And I did all right. You know, I was never a great fighter. I just did it for the enjoyment sort of thing. I remember the judge saying to me at the time, I've got a great technique for blocking. I block a lot of shots with my head. Don't think that was a compliment, but whatever. I did my best. Needless to say, I got knocked out of the competition. And Andy was up next, and he had a fantastic fight. His speciality, because he had legs that were about 47 foot long, his speciality was a kick called an axe kick, and he garnered the name Andy Axe Kick Jagger. So he's got into the competition, and the lad he was fighting was as technical and as good as him. It was a picture-perfect fight, very technical, very clean fight, both equally skilled, and did 3 rounds, knocking bells out of each other. After 3 rounds, they couldn't call it, and they called it a draw. So they sort of shook each other's hands, bowed to the judges, bowed to each other, and he's come hobbling up the stairs to the bleachers, and he was ashing, he was shaking, he was limping, he'd hurt his knee. And we sat him down, put a foil blanket over him, gave him an isotonic drink and something to eat. And the great grandmaster of the system was in, and he wasn't happy the fact it was a draw. So he sort of nigh on demanded that they do another round. So my instructor had sort of mastered the art of having a full-scale conversation with his eyes. And I clocked this, and he sort of said to Andy with his eyes, you don't actually have to do this, but the reputation of the club and whatever is in essence in your hands, you know what I mean? And Andy just sort of shrugged off his foil blanket and hobbled down to the mats. They sort of called each other to attention, they bowed to each other, and the fight got underway. And within like seconds, Andy's just delivered just a picture-perfect axe kick and just took the lad right out and got declared the winner. So yeah, that was sort of my experience with Andy Axe Kick Jagger at Kung Fu competition. Andy became part of like the local Kung Fu folklore, and everyone sort of, you know, have you ever trained with Andy Axe Kick Jagger? And he kind of sort of went down in sort of Kung Fu mythology in South Manchester. And a while after that competition, I was actually at my girlfriend's at the time, and I got a call. Andy was on holiday with his family and his sister's family, and he'd had a stroke whilst on holiday, and he got rushed to the local hospital, and it was something that they couldn't cope with. He got flown back to England to a specialist hospital in Stoke, but he had swelling on the brain, so it was sort of quite bad. And I basically got the call to say that he's got 48 hours, so I jumped straight in my van, phoned a couple of people from Kung Fu and let them know the sort of thing, and I flew up to Stoke to see Andy, sort of say my goodbyes and whatnot. And obviously all very sad, you know, more than anything, just a lovely, lovely lad, and it's such a shame. He didn't pull through. So when he passed away, I went to the funeral with everyone from Kung Fu, and it was at the sort of wake in the evening that his widow came up to me and said, can I fill in the blanks for her eldest son, Sean? Have I got any Kung Fu stories that I can pass on? And I thought, well, yeah, you know what, Sean? Get your earlugs around this. I've got a top story for you. And I told him about the time when, and I'm getting goose pimples now, when Andy Axe Kick Jagger just kicked the shit out of some lad in London for a part of a Kung Fu competition.